All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our June monthly OCA meeting. All three of you who are watching right now, we know that people come back and watch this later. I'm sorry. I see the view count, and so I'm like, oh, there's three people right now. So, hey, you got great odds of winning the prizes this month. So put your names down. You'll get a chance to win with how many prizes do we have this time, Lou?
We have two prizes, both donated by Dustin.
Okay, so you got a 75% odds of winning. Okay, we're up to six now. We got six people watching. I know it's going to steadily increase. So, hey, as you're tuning in again, we're just saying welcome to our OCA monthly meeting for June. This will be the last one. There'll be one. We take a month off in July, and then then we kick back in August. And Lou's got some special announcements for what's going to happen in August. So go ahead and take it away.
All right. The two drawings that we're going to have at the end. To get involved with these drawings, you have to type your name into the comments, your first and last name into the comments. That way you'll get on the wheel that will determine the winners. The first drawing will be open to everybody, and it's two packages of Rapashi food. It's grub pie, a 6-ounce grub pie. Well, that's their names. The second one is a 3-ounce container of morning wood, which is
you're kidding me, right?
I'm not. Which is a pleco. It's a pleco food. Yeah, I think the same people that name these, they hire the same people that name some of the local craft beers that you see. You see some of those names,
or the local chemical stuff you can get at the gas station.
Yeah. But everybody wants an edge, so that'll be the first one, and that'll be open to everybody. Anyone can win that's watching. The second one is a membership prize. That the winner, if you win, and you are a member, you will get a 3-pound bucket of omega-1 cichlid pellets. It's the 2-millimeter size. Very nice prize.
Cool.
Sinking pellets. If you're not a member, you'll get a free membership to the OCA. And
it's the gift that keeps on giving.
The gift that keeps on giving, because So those will be the prizes at the end. Don't forget to type your name into the comments so you can be part of that. Very good. We would have liked to have some of the meetings are starting to start up again, some of the local meetings, and we would have liked to have been one of them, but it's just a little bit too early in the month. Our venue in Middleburg Heights is not going to be open for another week or so, and we tried another spot, but they were booked, so here we are. That's that. Hey, the coloring contest. Don, why don't you tell us about the coloring contest that we just had?
So for the month of May, we ran a coloring contest and reached out worldwide to solicit. No, that sounds wrong. To find kids to color templates.
You should have slowed down a little bit there, but okay.
I should have just kept going. But at any rate, to get kids involved, we did a lot of advertising. We got some donations from RMS Aquaculture, your aquarium superstore, and so much more. And for a couple of subscriptions to Amazonas magazine digital version, and seems something else. But we had a lot of support for it. We did get, I think, Lou, you're going to go over the numbers, but roughly 10 kids or so that got involved, a couple of them from Malta, so pretty far away, which was cool. And we used the Weird Waters templates, and then also opened it up to anything hand drawn or any other drawings that are fish or hobby related. So our intent is to do something in the monthly bulletin, and also periodically online or in person, to engage the next generation and try to get them engaged in, this hobby that we all love. So, that's a little bit about it. The end was May 31st. So, Lou, why don't you tell us about the results?
Yeah, 11 was exactly the number. Now, Byron, were you able to get that graphic? I'd like to show.
Yeah, I've got two sets of pictures. Is that what you're talking about? The two colored picture sets?
Yeah.
So,
why don't we see those?
Okay, here's the first one.
Ah, cool.
And then here's the second one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the winners of the we have different prizes going to different people. Everyone gets a prize. The winners of the digital subscriptions to Amazonas are Julia and Julia. Notice there's two Julias right on that one. See that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just using first names here.
And age 8.
Yeah, the Julia, and both of those are winning a year subscription to Amazonas magazine. The other people are winning various prizes, which are the Odd Konings books, and one of the local entrants will win a $10 worth of livestock from RMS, and you will be, if you were a part of that, you will be emailed by Ron, who handled this, and he'll tell you what you won.
Cool. All right.
So I want to thank everybody that entered it. Yeah, we would have liked to have more, but whoever did the work, put in the entry, deserves the prizes. So.
All right. So what do we got next?
Let's talk about the bowl show. So here's the results from this month's bowl show. The Tanganyikan lamps, including shell dwellers, first place, Jonathan Jambi Dietrich, Neolamprologus pulcher. And second place is Lamprologus congoensis, again by Jambi. So he wins both of those. The first two places in those classes. And then the other class was Central Americans, 6 inches and under. First place is a Neotropolis nematopus, turned in by Hilary Lacerda. Second place, Amatitlania Sakia from the Rio Claro. And there they are, turned in by Jambi Dietrich. And the best of show, as you can see there, is the Neolamp pulcher by Jambi. Thank Jambi and Hillary for entering, and it's getting a little embarrassing that we having board members win all these prizes, but everybody has the same opportunity to turn them in. We have it on the website. We put it in the bulletin. So heck, why should they win it all? Maybe I'll put in something next month.
The president can't win, can he?
I don't know. He can try. Maybe he can't. Maybe his fish aren't good enough, but maybe he can try. So, yeah, that's the bull show. Now, we are continuing the bull show for the rest of the year. I remember when we put this together, we had a big discussion about what to do when we reopen, which is going to happen in August. And we decided to stick with the online bull show for the entire year, the virtual bull show for the entire year, because we didn't have it in January. It wasn't set up yet in January. We're going to do it next month. So there will be the only part of the meeting that'll happen in July. July is traditionally a non-meeting month off. But so the only thing that will happen is the bull show. So here are the July classes. They are Lake Malawi.
Nope, that's not it.
Cichlids and loricariids over 6 inches. So it'll be all the Lake Malawi fish and all the plecos, big plecos over 6 inches. And the time to enter those are June 11th through the 25th. There's your window of opportunity, your time to enter that June 11th to 25th. We won't be having a meeting in July, so here are the August classes. There will be Tanganyikan mouse brooders, excluding frontosa, since they are so different than the other Tanganyikan mouse brooders. That will be one class. The other class will be all cats, excluding the 3 groups that we have separate classes for, which are Macochids, which are all the Synodontis types, and the Calichthiids, which are all, Cori, Aspidoris, Brocus, that group, and Lorcariids, all the plecos. So, but there's a whole lot of other catfish out there that people keep. So all those other catfish families are eligible for the August class. So that's Tanganyikan mouse brooders, excluding frontosa, and all catfish, excluding Macochids, Calichthiids, and Lorcariids. And the entry time for that is between July 16th and July 30th. That was too fast. You're not going to remember all that stuff. So it's on the website. Okay, just go to the website under meetings and you'll see virtual bull show, the bull show section, and it's all explained there, all the classes, all the entry times and dates. So hopefully we'll get more people in there and, like to see more competition and more people winning money.
Well, I think I may actually be able to enter a couple fish this time with my green phantom plecos and my L137.
Yeah, we should see some gorgeous fish next month. There you go. So that is everything about the bull show. Now, usually at this time, I'd be telling you BAP. This was the last month for virtual BAP, because when we set up this program, it was only going to go as long as there were online meetings. Now that we have in-person meetings in August, we're going to be going back to that. So, and nobody turned any in. So it's, people want to go to live meetings, and I don't blame them. I went to. So August, it'll be happening. So save up your BAP for August. Maybe we'll see some big fish. Don't worry that your fish are too big. We understand that you've been holding on to these. So if it's something that you spawned and never turned in, bring 6, put them in the auction. They'll go in the auction. It's $1 a bag, which means that you'll get everything except $1, which will go to the club for that fish. So you'll get money out of it, and people will get, have opportunity at your cool fish that you breed.
Yeah, nice size.
Yeah, if it's a nice size, it's okay. You still get your points. I remember I turned in Vicks one time after I couldn't go to a meeting for like 3 months, 3 to 4 months. I couldn't go in. I turned in Vicks that were breeding, but that was a long time ago. But so, okay, let's talk about the Extravaganza. It will be opening very soon. Just about everything is in place. A couple little things have to be taken care of, and we'll open the registration. Watch Facebook. There'll be a lot of information about it in the July bulletin. There will be a July bulletin, even though there won't be a meeting. And that's plenty of time to do everything. So, but if you're on Facebook, all the stuff will be announced on Facebook. Speakers will be Odd Konings, Paul Loisel, Les Kaufman, Luis Tencott will be coming from Brazil. God willing, they're having problems down there, so hopefully that's going to work. COVID's really bad down there right now. Eric Bodrock will be visiting all the way from Pittsburgh, and Charlie Grimes will be there to entertain us. And he's good just to have there. So if you've never met Charlie Grimes, come to Extravaganza and you'll have a chance to meet him. Well worth your time, because Charlie's a great guy. When we reopen Extravaganza in the fall, all the features will be back. We're planning on everything we've always done, the live show, the vendor room, swap meet, everything will be there. One thing we are going to keep as of now is the virtual fish show that will run with the live fish show. So we'll have like 2 fish shows, one online, one live. And the virtual fish show will be for people that can't make the Extravaganza, too far away, would like to participate, work that weekend, but would like to participate. Also,
question real quick, Lou. For anybody maybe confused, can you double enter? Can you enter the same fish live and online?
No.
Okay,
but
that's what we need to know.
Yeah, but you can, if you show up and enter fish live, you could still enter other fish.
That aren't in person.
Yeah, because you might have some very valuable fish that's delicate, that you don't want to take out of your fish room. I mean, a lot of people have fish like that, but they won't show them because it's a little risky, the travel and all. So if you can do both, but I'm the rules haven't been formulated yet, but I'm almost sure you won't be able to double enter the same fish. So that's, like I said, the rules aren't fully formulated, but that's my guess.
It's still to be determined yet.
Right. But yeah, I wouldn't count on it. But who knows? We still have to talk about it.
Yeah.
That was a very good question. You should have asked me before. I could have researched it and talked.
Yeah, sorry. I just thought about it. I was like, well, hey, can I enter fish online and in person? Both.
Yeah, I'm thinking not, but it's not official yet. Yeah. Here's some big news about the Holiday Inn. And I saw on Facebook that this rumor has gotten around a little bit. That Holiday Inn is changing. Yes, the Holiday Inn is changing names. It's going to be the same business, the same owner, the same staff, but sometime in July, they're going to become a Best Western Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And, but all our contracts will still be good with them. The room rates will be the same. The one thing that does that is a little bit unfortunate for us now is that we can't do online booking. So I can't give out normally I give out a link that goes right to theirs, and it has all the codes entered automatically, and can't do that this time. But those of you watching can reserve your rooms now, because there's a phone number you can call that gets you to the sales office. Don't call the normal Holiday Inn number, because as soon as you say reservation, they'll send you off to some central booking, people that will have never heard of the OCA. But if you call this number, 440-738-3010, 440-738-3010, you'll have to do that during business hours. It's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, because you'll be calling directly into, I'm surprised they actually wanted us to give this number out, but she said it was fine, directly into the sales office, and they can take your reservation. You just say that you're with the OCA for the OCA event, and that'll be all the code you need.
And you need to be a member to get the special discount, right? You
don't need to be a member. What you need to do is register for the Extravaganza.
Okay. I remember previous years.
Yeah.
You were checking up on making sure you remember to get the special rate.
And we'll do that again. We'll get all the lists for all the people that registered with the OCA, that use the OCA code, and we'll cross-check it with the registration list. And we found a few people and had to handle it. And so if you are going to be taking advantage of that, we expect you to participate in the show enough to register. I don't think that's a lot to ask. Yes, you have to register for the OCA, but you don't have to register ahead of time. Okay. We'll check at the show.
The day of.
So even if you register on site, come in on Friday and register on site, you'll be okay. It's just a matter of, by the time you check out, you'll have to be on the registration list to get that $74 room rate.
Oh, nice. That makes sense.
Okay. Let's see. Do I have anything else here?
No. You have something?
I've got something.
All right.
Ready.
Yeah, that's everything.
Okay. On May 16th, the hobby lost an icon in the cichlid world, Dr. Wayne Leibel, editor of Cichlid News magazine and a great friend and supporter of the OCA and the American Cichlid Association. So it's been all on Facebook and all that, so a lot of people already heard, but I did want to acknowledge that and if you don't know who Wayne Leibel was, please go find some of his articles online or at cichlidae.com. He was a brilliant writer, a brilliant fish keeper, professor at Lafayette College, and just a great guy. So, you can get a flavor for what he was like by going back and reading some articles. I went and did that, over the past few days, and they're quite informative and entertaining. So, more to follow on that front, but, there'll be some, articles written in the ACA Bunt Barsh Bulletin and also in Cichlid News about that. So,
yeah, he was a two-time Extravaganza speaker. It was wonderful to work with. It's sad.
Yep.
Should have had him around longer.
Yep.
All right, so I guess we go to Dustin here.
All right, so we have a vendor spotlight, and Dustin will be coming on. You guys want to let everyone know a little bit who he's with and what vendor what store he owns and all that stuff?
Yeah, he. If anyone remembers the old L&S up in Sandusky, it was bought out by someone. Dustin will tell you this story for sure. That basically it left it an absolute mess. Abandoned it with live fish in the tanks. And it was that way for months with no attention.
Oof.
And Dustin had to deal with all that. And so he'll tell us about it. But he's got it up and running and just did some remodeling after an accident. And let Dustin tell you about it.
All right. Well, welcome, Dustin, to our live stream. Here he is.
Hey. How's everybody doing? So Lou's spot on. Hopefully I'm not echoing. I had to take a phone call.
Okay.
I figure since the OCA, we'll start with some pretty cichlids as I talk. Discus, angels, all that good stuff. But Lou's correct. Larry sold the store almost 5 years ago now. Gentleman between he and I let it run to the ground. Came in after 6 months. No heat. Fish in the tanks. Air was still on. Dozen fish lived. And brought it back to life within 2 months. And I have been here almost 2.5 years with my son, getting it going. Dustin's not here tonight. Easy to remember, Dustin and Dustin.
Yeah,
but
I was going to say tanks with dead fish in it do not smell good.
There was a 210 saltwater. That's the accident Lou's talking about. That one actually caught on fire back in November and shut me down for a little bit. That was frozen with chunks of shark, eel, and whatever else was in there. Larry's 180 was full of not the clown loaches. Remembers L&S, the giant clown loaches, luckily, were sold off. Those would be 26 years old this year. They were adults. They were large. They were gorgeous. They were the centerpiece of the store. Aside from the grumpy old man when you walked in and asked you, what do you want? But we got it back up running within a month. We did have help. Lou helped. George at Ag Aquatics helped out tremendously. Myself, my family, we got this place up and going to where you see all these pretty lights, all these pretty fish, and you see the bubbles.
Yeah.
We got it going. And there was a lot of help, a lot of work, but it was worth it. So I have my hobby back. Some of you guys might remember me. I don't know how to flip the camera. We went over this earlier. So you're welcome for not breaking your screen from seeing me. But it's up, it's going. It's a little slice of just the hobby back in my life, from 66 tanks in the garage to 112 up here, roughly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think, did you get my albino red empress and Malawi trout?
It did.
All right. Those sell well for you?
I don't have any left, and they didn't die, so yes.
Good. That makes me happy.
They did real well. Like when I saw your face earlier, I'm like, oh, yeah, I've seen this guy before. So beyond that, the store has been here for 28 to 29 years. Those who came and visited when it was L&S Aquatics, Larry did pass about 3 months ago. ALS set on late, quick, and fast. So I actually do have, and it's hard telling for those that are interested, the fish in my frag tank here with the beautiful glare because I wiped everything down. These are Larry's fish. His wife called me to tear the tank down. So once I get a new display tank, we will have a Larry Wilbur display tank set up. So basically, this is just still my hobby. I've always been fond of fish. As a kid, I wasn't allowed to have fish. Dad would buy a tank. When the fish died, we got rid of the tank. But then across the street, I met Lou and his stepdaughters and his wife, and he had 40 plus fish tanks in his basement. So I'd go over there and look at Lou's fish. So when my dad passed away in 2006, I went from a fish tank to 6 fish tanks to 20 fish tanks to, well, the rest is history. And I was a member of the OCA for quite a few years. I got into breeding Tropheus, was one of my real big fun fish to breed. And from there's history. And then I got rid of it all. I had kids close together in age, couldn't keep up. And then my oldest son, he's now 14. We saw this opportunity and we jumped on it. And the rest is history. It's been, like I said, a little over 2 years of doing this. I still support the hobby. And then with the coronavirus going on, I have many still people that get a hold of me looking like, hey, I have these fish. I'm saving these 6 for BAP. Are you interested in the other 100? Yeah. And I go, I pick them up, I bring them up here. Actually, these Julie's right here, Transcriptus. Just got them a couple weeks ago from a guy out in Sullivan. The angelfish. I have 3 different people. A guy here in Sandusky, a very nice lady in Medina, and the same guy in Sullivan. I got the Peruvian blues. So about 60%, 70% of my freshwater is local. We're not shipping it in. We're not having to upcharge because shipping sucks right now. If anyone's gotten fish shipped in, like, you're well aware. So I stick with local best I can. And I do have low prices because I stick with local to help everybody out. So I have an array, plenty of cichlids, plenty of community, plenty of catfish. I love catfish. And even, koi's. These are from a lady in Marietta, Ohio. About 4 hours from here, I have a middleman. I don't have to ship in from Asia. And like these are here from Sandusky. If anyone remembers the name Ozell, these are his sons. Phosphorochromis rostratus. He's breeding those. They're big. They're gorgeous. Same with the corals. I hardly ship in frags. I'm going to go to the other side. I hardly ship in frags. Actually, there you go. My daughter breeds rats. She's not into fish. She's into fuzzy things. So we even have pet rats. You come up here, I can grab a rat out. You can walk around the store talking to it, petting it. But even all these frags you see, 90% of those are from within an hour or less of here. I have guys that come up from Upper Sandusky and Bucyrus and ladies that bring me corals up. Because they'd rather bring them up here because they know I'm not going to have a good answer. I'm not a head counter for anyone that knows corals. I don't count heads. We look at the piece. But beyond that, this is just a little chunk, little slice of just an outlet mall in Sandusky. And yeah, we do have other fuzzy critters too. This big fella, he's big.
So what's your favorite fish you have right now in your store?
Personally, he's hiding and he's going to look black. That is a 10-inch, 8-year-old blue phantom. He was traded in for some discus. Beyond that, I am a big catfish fan. That's some butterflies left in my breeding group I lost in the fire, which I skipped over that. I had a 210-gallon saltwater tank. The sump caught on fire the night of time change in November.
How's a sump catch on fire?
I don't know if I can discuss what it came up to be on the report, but basically the really expensive item underneath it to stop fire, shorts, and salt leach malfunction.
Huh.
And it shorted. So that's the best way I can put it. It caught on fire, and it was melting the acrylic. The wall caught on fire, and then a 210-gallon saltwater tank broke and put the fire out.
That's true. A fish store is going to have a hard time burning down to the ground.
Correct. So that's the best way I can put that whole situation. Within 6 weeks, I had everything cleaned up enough to be open again. And then as of 3 weeks ago, I have floor and a ceiling again. It was an interesting winter and a lot of ick because it was hot, cold, hot, cold.
Ooh, yeah.
It sucked, but you know what? You keep going. Just like I showed you guys earlier. These were some drop-offs the other day. They were 5 and 6 inch Oscars. What they told me on the phone. That one's a football. That one's a little less. So either way, there's a little bit of everything here. This is my little bit of clear my headspace after work and come up and enjoy the hobby still. And like I said, as does my son. And we even have axolotls, hogs and lottles from Emily down in Mogador.
Hey, Dustin, I don't think we said the name of your store often enough.
Blue Seas Tropicals in Sandusky, Ohio.
Yeah, Blue Seas Tropicals, right.
Yep. We're up in the Rock and Roller Coast, as Cedar Point calls it.
Yeah, it's very close to Cedar Point.
Yep.
So so if you know how far it is to Cedar Point, you know how far it is to Dustin's store.
And I go there about once a year, except for last year. So I'm on my way there to Cedar Point. I have to stop by.
There you go, Byron. That really is what they're named. Yeah, grub pie, Morningwood. I was out of bottom scratcher. We would have done that too.
Ooh,
but
okay.
Off the fresh water, I do have salt water. I keep a little bit just to pick people up here and there. So I do have salt water. And even my wholesalers, I have some local ones for that too. Beautiful Aquatics is in Ohio, freshly opened. Some of the frags I do order in are from eye-catching corals here in Ohio, and I do get some from a lot of my fish from A&M Aquatics in Michigan. And they are gorgeous, if you can tell in the video. And then I have plenty of tank setups, dry goods, and I don't know what else to do because I don't want to trail on.
No, it looks great. This has been really cool.
Yeah, like I said, if you saw it 6 months ago, you wouldn't believe we'd be standing here talking right now. But a lot of time, effort. I'd like to thank you guys, thank the OCA and everybody watching for giving me the opportunity to be on here. I really do appreciate it. I am the little guy. What I'm doing, a lot of other people can back it up too. I am in a dying hobby. Not a dying hobby, dying industry. Mom and pop stores don't stand a chance anymore. So we got to get these cool, neat things in, like these big discus and these plecos and other fish from you guys to keep people intrigued. So I do thank you. And if anyone stops by and you have kids, I always have different creatures we can handle and no one gets hurt and get the next generation hooked in the hobby.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I remember feeling sorry for Larry because he had that shop there, and then suddenly 2 big box stores open within a half a mile.
Yep.
Big box pet stores. Yep. And so he had, that's when he started going to saltwater.
Yep.
That's when he started that because he was mostly cichlids before.
Yep.
And so you got to just offer rare stuff, unusual stuff to compete.
And that makes sense. I mean, I've always wondered, I think it's a smart thing to do that when, the mom and pop shops take from local breeders, I think they do a whole lot better than trying to compete and buy from the nationwide, chain stuff.
You're correct. And I offer them more than what it would be wholesale, including shipping, just so you still have the hobby, you still have the clubs, you still have people coming back and staying intrigued in it. And with the COVID, I did my best to take all I could just so people weren't overwhelmed. Like Lou was saying, I went to a guy's house the other day. His BAP are breeder size just because he's waiting.
Yeah.
That's what I have. Like I said, this is my little slice of clearing the head after getting off work every day, and I come up here and do this.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
All right. Thank you, Dustin. That was very good.
All right. Well, I appreciate, like I said, thank you guys. And hopefully everybody enjoyed it. And maybe I'll see some old faces and some new faces stop up and say hello.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us here and taking time out of your busy schedule. So look forward to seeing you at the OCA.
I will be there.
All right. Take care.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yep, you too.
Bye, Dustin. All right, we're ready for our main event here. Was ready after all that. Our speaker is a PhD in ecology from University of California at Veracruz. He is a freshwater ecologist. He's an ichthyologist and currently is a working conservation biologist. He's also a National Geographic Explorer and does work for them. He's important to us. He won the 2019 Jim Smith Fund grant. That's our fund where we collect money and put it all together, and then give out grants every year at the Extravaganza to people that have projects, for the benefit of cichlids and catfish. They could be conservation, they could be education, they could be research. So a bunch of people will every year put in applications, put in proposals, and the board goes through them, and we give some money every year. And because of we did so well with the virtual Extravaganza, we're going to be given the most amount ever in November at the Extravaganza. So you can donate to that online on our website, a couple different places on the website. When you register for the Extravaganza, for example, that page will have a donation. So when you see the Jim Smith Fund donation, that's what it's for. Let's talk to Joe now. He won that grant for the a project that he'll be reporting on. So I'll let him talk about that. It was I was following it on Instagram. It's the only person I follow on Instagram, and it was fascinating. And there's going to be lots of great photos, and you got videos too, right, Joe?
Yes, I do.
Okay, excellent. So here is great guy and a very interesting person, Joe Cutler.
Thank you very much, Lou. Hello to the OCA. It's really great to be back with you all. It's been too long. I wish that I were there in person. I'm very excited for you all to get back in person in August. Wish I could be there. But unfortunately, I'm going to be back in the field. So I'm happy to get the chance to meet up with you all today. Now, I apologize for my internet connection today. I'm on a public Wi-Fi at a Starbucks in Mammoth Lakes. I just hiked out of Yosemite yesterday in the afternoon, and I'm hiking back out 26 miles tomorrow to Harriet Lakes. So that should be interesting. But let me pull up my sharing because I've got lots of photos and, like Lou said, videos from my most recent trip to Gabon. And I think you all will enjoy it. So give me a second here, my PowerPoint, and make it full screen here. And can someone let me know when you've got a full screen view of my screen?
We've got you up. It's just a little bit of a delay, but I'll make it full screen layout. And there we go. Yep, you're full screen now.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to be telling a few stories and sharing a lot of fishy updates from the Ogooué Megatransect, a project supported by the OCA through the Jim Smith Memorial Fund, and also by National Geographic and the American Philosophical Society. And this was a project to explore one of Africa's last wild rivers, the largest river in Gabon, the Ogooué. And as Lou mentioned, my name is Joe Cutler. I'm a National Geographic Explorer, and I study freshwater fish diversity. I've gone from Mongolia to Malawi, and now here in California, studying freshwater fish. But most of my work has been in Central Africa, in Gabon, where I get the chance to study beautiful and delicious fish like this. And just as a geographic reminder, Gabon is in Central Africa. It's right on the equator and has an a west-facing Atlantic coast. Pretty small country, about the same size as Oregon, and there are very few people in the country, less than 2 million total. So it's considered one of the really pristine gems in Central Africa. And the Ogooué is the gem of the gem. The Ogooué is the fourth largest river in Africa by flow. More water flows out of the Ogooué than out of the Nile, yet the Ogooué remains poorly explored, poorly understood, and poorly protected. There are less than 4 human inhabitants per square kilometer on the Ogooué. So most of the river system basically has no one in it, and you've got virgin forest. And I've been working in Gabon for 10 years, kind of exploring this system. And it's an amazing area for a biodiversity lover because, even if you're studying fish, there are incredible butterflies, gorgeous tiny frogs no bigger than your fingertip, and some of the largest land mammals on Earth. The Ogooué is home to 90% of the remaining forest elephants in the entire world, the most species of elephants on the planet. But as a fish lover, there's nothing like sticking your head underwater on the Ogooué and exploring these ecosystems. Every river, every stream, every pond you touch has something new in it. And I've been fishing in Gabon since 2014, and I'm still finding fish that I've never seen before. And over the course of my PhD and my past projects in Gabon, we've documented over 300 species, and about 10 to 15% of what we have collected in Gabon is undescribed and completely new to science. So we are really working on this frontier of scientific discovery, exploration, and conservation, because a lot of these species are found only in really small systems that are threatened by local populations. So I took this photograph right in a tributary of the Ogooué, close to the town of Njole, and this is an illegal gold mine. And what they're doing is they are literally digging up the riverbed and sifting all of the sediment, looking for tiny fragments of gold. And as you can imagine, this river system is totally decimated, and at least locally, there's very little remaining fish diversity. But probably more widespread than mining in Gabon is timber exploitation. So Gabon is 80% forested, but almost all of that forest outside of the national parks has been slated for exploitation. So you will come upon areas where the entire rainforest has been clear cut to the ground, and the logs are being stacked on the banks of the Ogooué, ready to be floated out to the coast, where they will be shipped internationally and processed. And this massive deforestation has a really large impact on small tributaries and streams that flow through these forests and are home to countless killifish, mormyrids, cichlids, etc. And then possibly the largest looming threat in the Ogooué and in Gabon's freshwater ecosystems generally is the threat of hydropower dam development. So right now in Gabon, there are only 3 hydropower dams. But there are 42 proposed dam sites throughout the country, 14 on the mainstem Ogooué. Now, if these dams are put in, and if they block critical migratory corridors or disrupt patterns of seasonality and flow in this very tropical river, this could really affect the freshwater biodiversity of the Ogooué, one of Africa's last wild rivers. So with that context, I started thinking about how can we explore and document this huge and wild river before it's too late, while it's still in a natural condition with just one dam in the system. And I came up with the idea of the Ogooué Megatransect, where my team and I would start as far upstream as we could, just around Franceville, and we would paddle slowly down the river across the country of Gabon until we reached the Atlantic Ocean. And this would provide us the opportunity to survey freshwater biodiversity, document human exploitation and utilization of the system, and make a more compelling and scientifically rooted conservation scheme for the Ogooué. So All these dots you see here on the map are sites where we documented biodiversity. We surveyed 42 sites for fish biodiversity on the Ogooué, and on this expedition, we got a better idea of what's out there than in any previous expedition to date. So, so my plan originally was to fly to Gabon in April of 2020 and kick off our season with the end of the rainy season so that we'd have maximum amount of time out on the river throughout the long dry season. But as you all know, 2020 was not a typical year for anyone. And so our expedition was delayed. We finally made it to Gabon in August. And so we were looking at our remaining months before the rains were starting, thinking, man, we've got to paddle quickly. So we got to Gabon in August, and by August 20th, we were set and ready to launch in Franceville with a team composed of 7 Gabonese scientists and 2 Americans, myself and my fiance included. So it was a small, light team, but we were about to try something that had not been done in over 100 years, which is raft down the Ogooué. And this is what our boat, mode of transportation, and home looked like. It was a 16-foot expedition-style raft. We had plenty of room for gear, probably about 1,000 pounds of equipment in the back of the boat. And then we had plenty of room in the front for passengers. And of course, I had 2 fishing poles rolling off the back of the boat almost the entire trip in hopes of catching a giant out of the Ogooué. Every day after we'd paddle all day long, we'd find a beautiful spot on the riverbank and we'd pitch our tents. We camped in some awesome spots on riverbanks, on islands, in fishing camps, villages, and towns. But every day was the same situation. We'd unload the gear, set up our tents, and very quickly start sampling. At every site that we stopped, we'd sample for an hour in the daytime and an hour in the evening. We used seines, dip nets, cast nets, hook and line, and fisherman surveys of local fishermen. We were trying to document as much of the biodiversity as we could. So we weren't just fishing in the mainstem Ogooué, we were fishing in the forested tributaries, in the swamps, basically anywhere that we could pass our nets. And every single fish that we collected, we would identify, photograph a voucher, count the number of specimen, and then we would release the fish. Over the course of this expedition, we collected nearly 10,000 fish from the Ogooué, all of which, or I should say almost all of which, were returned to the river safely. A few fish, including the fish in this photograph, were eaten for dinner. And I'm sure you can understand on a long expedition, when you're catching a lot of fish, you do want to eat a few of them. And so you'd start your sampling, you'd start processing fish, and while you'd be sampling fish, someone in your team would be cooking dinner. You would scarf down as much as you could. We were always hungry on this trip. This evening, we were eating red rice with lentils and fresh fish. And then what you can see my colleague Paul slicing there is manioc, which is pounded cassava, and it tastes just like old gym socks. So we were eating whatever we could find locally, supplementing it with freshwater fish, just stuffing food down our throats, because as soon as we were done eating, we'd be back sampling through the sunset and into the night. And one of the amazing things about this expedition was not only were we able to sample the Ogooué from the headwaters all the way to the coast, but we were able to sample in the daytime and in the nighttime at all of these sites. So during the daytime, you'd see a lot of the barbs and small minnows and cichlids. And then as soon as the sun would set, the catfish would come out and the more myrids would come out. And it was just awesome to see this transition of biodiversity between the day and nighttime species assemblages. And finally, you'd get to rest your head on a beautiful riverbank and wait for the sun to rise and start the next day. Now, over the course of the expedition, we caught a lot of fish. As I mentioned, nearly 10,000. I believe that the exact number was 9,666 individual fishes were collected on this expedition, at least 73 distinct species, and some nights we collected over 1,000 fish in a single hour. Those nights, the processing took forever, but it was awesome to see the biodiversity. Now, the way we were able to sample and do this all so quickly and also release all of the fishes was we were using iNaturalist, which is an online platform, to log our observations and use community level identifications to ID the specimen that we collected. So if any of you are interested in seeing every single species that we collected on the Ogooué or that we observed, you can log on to iNaturalist and search our project, which is Africa's Last Wild River. Actually, no, excuse me. It is the Ogooué Megatransect. You can then scroll through and look at every single fish that we collected, and you can even look at subsets of it. So if you said, I only want to look at the cichlids and the catfish, you could look within our iNaturalist observations and see every species of cichlid and catfish that we collected on this expedition. And what I want to kind of do at this point is talk to you about what we saw, because we had the chance to sample, like I mentioned, from Franceville all the way to Missouri at the Atlantic coast. And the fish assemblages changed. So the first set of fish photographs I want to show you were from our first night of sampling just upstream of Franceville. Now at this site, the Ogooué is already quite large, but you have an assemblage of fishes that has a lot of the influences of the Pateke Plateau. So you've got these small Microcynodontis species. You've got lots of elastids and carassiforms, like these two species. Labio, these are very similar to our catastomids in the United States. These fill the role of a sucker. Now, these things are absolutely everywhere in rocky habitats. Lots and lots of small minnows. I apologize for the photos. They should get better as the trip progresses and we get more used to taking photos in my hand. This species, Rhayamas buckholzi, is a fish you should get familiar with by the end of this talk, because it was literally at almost every single site that we sampled on the Ogooué. As long as it wasn't a rapid, we found Rhayamas in incredible abundances. Another species that was absolutely everywhere were jewel cichlids, Hemichromis elongatus. These are two tiny little juveniles, but we caught much larger individuals, and they, much like the Rhayamas, were found at almost every site that we sampled. These fish, though, prefer much slower moving habitats than the Rhayamas. Now, this is an interesting species that we only saw at a couple sites. It's a scale eater, a Hemistocotis elongatus, the only member of its genus in Gabon, and a very distinct fish. Now, this one is a tiny little juvenile, but they get to be about 3 or 4 inches long. They have a really bizarre shaped mouth. So those were the fish we caught at our first site at Franceville in the lower right portion of this map. But as we moved downstream, we started to catch different fishes. So the next suite of photographs is going to kind of describe the fishes that we caught between the Lasterville area and the Chutes des Bouets, the largest waterfall on the Ogooué and a major barrier for fish migration. So this stretch of the Ogooué from Lasterville down to Bouet is really wide, generally pretty flat, but punctuated with a series of small rapids. It's also where the largest tributary of the Ogooué, the Vindo, comes in. So in this video, which unfortunately is only a quarter the size of the screen, you can see the two different colors of the Vindo and the Ogooué coming together. And the Ogooué is coming in on the left side of the image. It looks like chocolate milk. And the Vindo is a blackwater forest stream, one of the largest ones outside of the Amazon basin. And we had the chance to not only paddle across this confluence, but survey that area for 3 days. And it was absolutely awesome to see the complete change in fish biodiversity that we saw when those two systems came together. So in these areas, we saw, again, these labio, very similar to catastomates. In every rocky area, you would always find this species. We also started to see more migratory catfish. Now, this is a juvenile Shilbay grenfilly. These are the butter catfishes and one of the most prized freshwater fish in Gabon for local consumption. Now, this is a tiny juvenile, but they get much larger, and they were very abundant in this stretch of the Ogooué. Other catfish, like the Cruzictes, were also very abundant in this stretch. These fish also migrate, and some of the species actually breed in the estuary. But they are literally found in every freshwater ecosystem in Gabon, from swamps to the large rivers. And they've got some really poisonous spines on their pectorals and dorsals. So you have to be careful, especially holding small ones like this. Now, this is a small labiobarbus called the Capitaine des Eaux Douces by the Gabonese. Now, these fish will get to be 4 or 5 feet long, and in some systems, they are the top predator. We never caught a very large one on this expedition, but we saw local fishermen with huge ones in their nets. Now, because we were seining and cast netting and dip netting, I think that we caught a lot of juveniles rather than adults of a lot of these species. But a species like this, Enteromius brazai, is an adult, and it's probably a 2.5-inch long fish. Now, this fish is named after the original explorer of the Ogooué, Pierre Sauvignon de Brazza, and it was a fun fish to find throughout much of the Ogooué. Although it appears to me like its range is more well established in the upper Ogooué than it is in the lower Ogooué, where de Brazza spent more of his time. Now, this was the first really cool fish we caught on the Ogooué. It's a true we caught this fish, Dumea typica, at the Chutes de Dumé, where this fish and this genus was originally described. So this is a really cool species of amphilid catfish, rapids adapted. I literally threw my cast net into a waterfall and pulled out 7 individuals of this species. And we only saw them at 3 sites throughout the whole Ogooué. Every single one of those sites was a rapid. One of the coolest catfish in the Ogooué, and one of my favorite fish that we collected on the whole expedition. Now, this fish, while it doesn't look so beautiful in the photograph, is my equivalent to a trout in the Ogooué. This is an Opsiridium, and they get these beautiful vertical bars, a bit like par marks on trout, and they superficially look a lot like Rayamas, and they will school in the same. They'll move in the same school as Rayamas. So you'll catch 50 Rayamas with 1 Opsiridium mixed in there. But you can always distinguish them because of their small mouth and usually the beautiful coloration that they've got. And then, as I mentioned, here's another Rayamas. The Rayamas are literally in every ecosystem. And another way to distinguish them from the Opsiridium is the Rayamas almost have a green spot, a little reflective spot on the tip of the nose. So when you're walking around after dark with the headlamp on, you actually see their nose shining as they swim through the water. Now, I took this photograph of a jewel cichlid, another Hemichromis elongatus, guarding her fry. And as I mentioned, these jewel cichlids, these Hemichromis, are everywhere in the Ogooué. Hemichromis elongatus, I should say. There are other species of Hemichromis, but they're much less widely distributed in the system. As in every part of the Ogooué, there are lots of elastids. This is an Elestes macrothalamus, which the common name is a torpedo robber. And these are pretty awesome predators, and you actually even catch them on a hook and line in the Ogooué. But there are also a lot of Brachyonethiops in this area. And these are beautiful fish, but very hard to identify at species level because it's all about their molar shape. So you've got to open up the fish's mouth, look at the shape of the molar. And because we were releasing most of our fish, a lot of my identifications in the field ended at genus level. So I can say this is a Brachyonethiops, but I left it at SP, like many of the other elastids. The barbs are a little bit easier. So there are tons of little teeny tiny minnows in the Ogooué. Thankfully, you can distinguish most of the species based on their coloration pattern. So this one, Enteromius holitani, has this really clear, distinct black band from the tip of the snout through the eye and all the way through the caudal fin. And this was also the stretch of the river where we caught, I would argue, the most beautiful cichlid in Gabon. This is another jewel cichlid, a Hemichromis stellifer. And of all the 9,000 what odd fish we collected in Gabon, we collected the species in just one site. If anybody's curious about it, I could tell you exactly where it is. It's in a town called Lasterville. And we caught half a dozen individuals of the same species in the same site, and the coloration pattern was really incredible on a few of the individuals like this one. This was also a stretch of the river where we started to catch some larger fish. So this is a pretty bizarre looking fish. It's a Distichotis hypostomatus. And that's the name indicates that it's got this really bizarre downturned mouth. And this is a detritivore that lives in the Ogooué. And they're very beautiful. And the only way that we caught them was with cast nets. Never caught them with a seine. So they were always caught in swift-moving, rocky habitats. We also caught some larger cichlids, like this Coptodon in this stretch of the river. I caught my largest labio of the entire expedition in a cast net. This is, probably a foot-long fish, and once they're large, much like the other catastomids, they'll get a lot of growths, horny growths on their snout. So this individual not only was as large as any I'd ever seen, but had quite developed tubercles on the snout. I also started to catch more fish on hook and line in this section of the Ogooué. So this was my first ever Heterobranchus longiphilis. Now this is probably the biggest catfish species in the Ogooué. They're reported to growing up to 200 pounds in the Evindo. This is a comparative small specimen, probably about a 10-pound catfish, which was not only a prize for me, but I took it to the governor of the province, and he ate it for dinner that night, and I think it was a prize for him as well. But I also started catching a lot of fish at night while night fishing. So you've got your pulls in, you're sleeping in your tent, and all of a sudden you hear the line screaming off your reel, and you run out to go and catch a big, beefy Cruzichthys catfish like this in the middle of the African night. It was pretty darn exciting. This was also the first stretch of the river where we started to interact with more local fishermen. So this was the first time where we were able to kind of compare what we were catching with what they were catching and eating. So this photograph was taken in Mbunga Baduma, second large village on the banks of the Ogooué. And this local fisherman had gone out, spent the whole night out fishing, checking his gill nets, and he came back the next day with honestly just a handful of fish, no more than 10. This large labio barbus, one Parachina glanus, which is another catfish species that we've got, clairtaid catfish that we've got in Gabon. A couple larger Shilbe grenfilli. Again, these are the butter catfish, very delicious. And one quite large Cruzichthys. Now, for a fisherman who's going out and spending all night out fishing, a handful of 1 or 2 pound fish doesn't seem like very much. And I was always kind of amazed with how few fish the local fishermen were catching. There was not much of a local effort in fishing on this river, yet a lot of the fish seem small and not terribly abundant in some of these stretches. Now, the Ogooué continues pretty much the same until you get to this rapid. And this is the Chutes des Bouées. This is a drone flying over the waterfall. And it starts with about a 30-foot direct fall onto some cliffs, followed by about a half a mile of Class 5 rapids. Now, this is the biggest feature on the Ogooué. It is the only Class 5 rapid on the Ogooué, and it is a historic challenge for navigation. So, when the original explorers, Pierre Sauvignon de Braza, got to this site, it took them about a month, and they had to portage their big boats up the rocks. Now, we had to do the same thing, but in the opposite sense. And so this is kind of what our descent looked more like. We unloaded all the gear out of our raft and found a bunch of strong local fishermen, and we scooted the raft inch by inch all the way around the mile of rapids until we could get below it and safely back into the water. And then we went back up and carried all of our gear down. It was a long, hot, sweaty day, but thankfully we had good local support that day. Now, what was interesting is the moment you get past those rapids, the fish community changes. And that's not to say that there aren't still rapids downstream of Ogooué. So this video was taken at definitely the scariest place that we rafted on our trip. This is the rapids of Junkville. And this is a crazy part of the river where there are whirlpools that are 30 feet across and large enough to suck down our boat. There are huge standing waves. The turbulence in this river is absolutely insane. And you've got a lot of water funneled through these rocky channels. Now, I should say that before this expedition, I had never rafted a major river. I had only started rafting in 2000. So for me, rafting down, a Class 4 rapid that had never been scouted, where we were miles from the nearest hospital, was pretty nerve-wracking. That site in particular was scary. But like I said, downstream of Chutes de Bouet, we saw different fish. Snapper, marine fish, these guinea snapper migrate all the way to that waterfall I showed just a few slides ago. Now, this guinea snapper is a marine fish. It breeds in the ocean, but they clearly are migrating at least 700 kilometers or 450 miles up the Ogooué River system. We also saw different catfishes. So above the Chutes de Bouet, you never see a glass catfish. You go downstream of it, and it is one of the most abundant fish you see when sampling after dark. These Corellia occidentalis are absolutely beautiful, and if you get the right lighting on them, they're completely transparent. You can actually see the swim bladder right behind the gill on this individual. We also started to see some of the real predators on the Ogooué. So we saw more Hepsatus, the African pike, downstream of Bouet, and all the way out to the coast. But upstream of Bouet, very few of these. We also saw a lot more cichlids and more tilapia-shaped cichlids, deeper-bodied, less riverine adapted cichlids as the river started to slow down as we went from Bouet down toward Lambaréné. We also saw a lot more and more myrids. So like this little teeny tiny Petrocephalus, above Chutes de Bouet, we never saw a single one. You get down below the Chutes de Bouet, and if you're walking on a sandbank after dark with a headlamp on, these fish have glowing eyes, and you'll see them moving in schools of hundreds along the sandbanks, hunting for food. We also started to see other Distichotis. So this is a Distichotis notospilus, one of the species with the smallest mouths I've ever seen. The mouth is not terminal, it's actually on the bottom of the head, and it's a very silly looking fish, but also very beautiful. They can get really bright red fins. We also caught really an awesome Chromidotilapia here. I'm not entirely sure what Chromidotilapia this is. There are a lot of species in Gabon, but I believe it's Chromidotilapia regani, which is considered a vulnerable species. Now, interestingly, we only caught this in the mainstem, never in any of the tributaries that we sampled. We also caught our first and only knife fish. Brown knife fish, Xenomystis nigri, which is pretty popular in the aquarium trade, can be found in Gabon. And we saw our first ones at the confluence of the Ogooué and the Ivindo, but we caught our first one quite a bit downstream in a very swampy area. We also started to see more and more Clarius catfish, and again, some bigger fish. So larger Chrysichthyes and lots and lots of Heterotus niloticus. Now, the fish you're seeing on the right with the large scales, that is the Nile arowana. And it was introduced into the Ogooué system in 1960. And now these fish are the most commonly caught food fish by Gabonese fishermen. They grow to be about 4 feet long, and they are so abundant in that river system, it's amazing. As you're paddling down, especially when the Ogooué widens out and slows down, these fish are jumping everywhere and tail slapping. Now, it's a good thing that the Gabonese people are eating them, but they're not eating them fast enough because those fish are taking over the Ogooué and now migrate up as far as the chutes de bouée, just like the snappers. We also caught a lot of Hemichromis elongatus. Again, one of these species that is absolutely everywhere in the Ogooué. Again, more cichlids, more cichlid diversity. This is a Pelmatolapia cabre, and this individual in particular was quite colored up. We also caught Xenocerax, which is another distichodontid. More types of mormyrids. So this is a Marcasinius mori, very distinct with that elongate pharaoh-like chin. And this was one of the fish that we collected that was most curious to me. This is a Nanocerax parvus. And this to me is a species that I've only seen in the smallest creeks. And they can get very abundant in small river systems, but we caught this individual in the middle of the Ogooué on a sandbank where there was absolutely no habitat for it to hide in. Now, I was really surprised to see a species like this, especially just one individual in all the fish we caught all night in this open water, exposed sandy habitat. So I'm very curious what this fish was doing there and what other habitats we may find them. This is a Nanaethiops, a African one-line tetra. It's not much of a photograph, but this species can be very beautiful. It's another distichodontid, quite popular, can be very beautiful in the aquarium, and I think can be found some places in the aquarium trade. Chrysichthyes catfishes are absolutely everywhere in the Ogooué system. There are at least 4 species with varying snout shapes and lengths, but they all have venomous and serrated dorsal and pectoral spines. So you've got to be really careful when holding these. And then also some really beautiful African tetras. Bricholestis longipennis is this species. The males have these really beautiful filamentous dorsal fins. And they're not every single individual, but when you get a nice one like this, it pays off getting a nice photograph. This is one of the most beautiful mormyrids that we collected. This is an Evendomyrus marshii. And Gabon is home to a lot of mormyrid diversity. It's actually probably the hot spot globally for mormyrid diversity, especially in the Paramormorops lineage. Now, those are mostly restricted to the small streams, so we saw more other genera of mormyrids in the mainstem Ogooué, but it was always fun to catch these teeny tiny fragile mormyrids and record their electric organ discharges so that we could study their diversity and their electric communication languages. We caught more Chromatolapia in this zone as well. This is a Chromatolapia kingsley. And we caught this mysterious barb. This is a teeny tiny Enteromius. Now, what was interesting about this species, it looked a lot like Enteromius trispilominus, which has 3 characteristic dots on the sides. But where we collected this individual was outside of the known range, and we collected detected a lot of individuals that appeared to be of the same species, but the number of spots on their sides varied from 0 to 7. So we don't know whether this is actually Enteromius trispilominus or something else that we're not entirely sure of. So this could actually remain, this and other fish remain unidentified, and we're still awaiting final IDs for some of these species. Others, like this Enteromius gurale, very easy. You catch it once, you know exactly what it is. It's got a very distinctive spot on the dorsal fin and no other dark markings on the flanks. This is also where we saw our first invasive tilapia. So this is a Nile tilapia. And what's interesting is Nile tilapia in this system, again, were introduced in 1960 as a food fish, but they've now run rampant into the system, and they are now hybridizing with the historically most common cichlid, Oreochromis schwabishi. So this, I believe, is a hybrid between Oreochromis niloticus and an Oreochromis schwabishi. And as you get down to the Lambarene area and the lakes in the Ogooué Delta, there are a lot more cichlids and heterotis, and generally non-native fish make up a much larger portion of the biodiversity and biomass as you reach toward the coast. Now, I mentioned that Lambarene is kind of the start of the lakes part of the Ogooué. So this is the shot of our raft leaving the main fish market in Lambarene. Again, sorry that the photograph only takes up a quarter of the screen. But what you see on the right side on all those racks is drying fish. These are fish drying racks where the Gabonese fishermen will dry their salt Heterotis niloticus. And all these boats lined up along the bank are fish boats that are fishing in the lake systems in the Ogooué Delta. And they target Nile tilapia and the Nile arowana. And they pretty much exclusively catch those two species. They drive them all to this one fish market, and they sell all their catch there. Pretty amazing place, and I think our raft was definitely the first inflatable boat that had ever pulled up at that fish market in Lambarene. But when you leave Lambarene, from here all the way to the coast, the Ogooué is totally different. It's flat. You're only at 100 feet of elevation in Lambarene, and you're 100 miles from the Atlantic Ocean. So the elevation drop is very low, and the tidal influence goes on seemingly forever. So this whole last stretch of the Ogooué is in the Ogooué Delta. And about a third of Gabon's land, right up to Libreville and right down to Iguela from Lambarene, is all the Ogooué Delta. And so the Ogooué braids out, forms a lot of lakes, and the main channel itself splits into all these different pathways, and you've got to figure out which way is best. It was also the part of the trip where the rainy season finally caught up with us. So we would paddle, and about at 1 or 2 p.m. every single day, there would be a torrential tropical thunderstorm, and we would be forced to paddle to the banks as fast as we could, get off the water, and hunker down. This was also the stretch of the river that was full of hippopotamus. So every boat that we'd pass, instead of asking them, "Oh, are there rapids coming?" we'd ask, "Are there hippos coming?" And they would say, "Yes, there are hippos coming. Just avoid the right bank and you should be fine." And so we paddled past herds of hippos, including this big angry male, and we just casually paddled away from them. There was one day, though, where we were paddling and we did not see the hippo in front of the boat, and probably 10 feet in front of our boat was the biggest splash that I've ever seen in my life, and it was a hippo that came up, saw our boat, freaked out, and turned tail to run. And the splash, pretty much nearly swamped our giant raft and certainly woke me up from the lull in the paddle that we were having. But that was our close encounter with the hippo. Did not get a photograph of it, though. This was also the stretch of the Ogooué with the giant crocodiles. So the Ogooué is home to all 7 species of crocodile found in Africa, 3 of which grow to be over 250 pounds. That is the Nile crocodile, saltwater crocodile, and the African slender-snouted crocodile, as you see in this photograph. Now, I did not catch this crocodile. Other fishermen did, and I just took the head and posed for the photograph. These poor fishermen were out checking their gill nets, and as they pulled their gill net up, they found that they had literally a 300-pound crocodile entangled in their gill net, and they had to hack it into pieces to fit it inside their boat to take it back and sell the meat. This crocodile, while it may look like I'm lifting it up with ease, I could barely lift up that crocodile's head, and I thought I was pretty strong. So that head may weigh 50, 60 pounds, and the crocodile itself was a lot bigger. So down here in the lower Ogooué, you see the giants. You see a lot of snapper. Snapper were the most common thing I was catching on a hook and line down there, and they were really abundant. This is also the stretch of the Ogooué where you get big tarpon. And when I say big tarpon, I took a photograph with this one. This was the biggest one I could lift. There were tarpon over 200 pounds on the same cleaning station that I took this photograph with. Now, tarpon migrate at least as far as Lambaréné and are caught occasionally by the local fishermen, but they are prized as food fish in Gabon, and they are less and less abundant. Now, this stretch of the Ogooué, right up to Lambaréné, you're seeing a lot of marine fishes, or what I would call marine fishes. So you've got your mullets, you've got jacks, carangids, you've got beautiful little pipefish if you're willing to go and work your way through the weeds after dark. Here's another photograph. They're just so cute. You can't have just one photograph of a pipefish. We also started to see a lot of giant African threadfin. Now, this is a pretty small individual, but they'll get to be 45 pounds and are one of the premier game species in Gabon, both in the coastal waters and in the estuary. As I mentioned, there were a lot of snappers. So this was one of the most awesome moments on the whole Ogooué. I was floating down the river. My line starts screaming. I fight this snapper into the boat. I'm posing for this photograph. And the next thing I know, my other fishing line starts screaming. And I've got a double hookup. I've got two 15-pound snapper flipping around in my inflatable raft. And I'm hoping that their spines won't pierce a hole. And then I was able to turn around, paddle to that village you see behind me, and give two huge fresh snapper to the community. And I'll tell you, they were beaming from ear to ear with that little sign of camaraderie and sharing. Now, we started to catch quite a few gobies and sleepers in this section. Now, when I caught this fish, I got really excited because I don't see very many sleepers when I'm sampling in freshwater ecosystems. So I actually had to go pull out my identification key and say, what in the hell is this? It's a weird looking fish, and I've never caught one before. And that was a real sign that we were approaching the coast and that the biodiversity was changing. And there's nothing like a marine fish in my mind than a flatfish. We started catching quite large flatfish as far up as Lambaréné. So we had really started to transition into marine, although the water is fresh in that area. This is a freshwater clupeid, so a polonula. And these fish are really abundant, probably the primary forage fish in the lower Ogooué. We've also got completely transparent awaris, and these little gobies are pretty much everywhere in the sandy habitats. Catch a lot of them in the seines at night. We finally got our first killie of the expedition. Because we were fishing the mainstem primarily, we didn't get very many, but we did get Aplochilictes spilauken, which is a widespread killie that is found in most of the estuaries along the west coast of Africa. And then we had a lot of the common freshwater fish. So here's our friend again, the Ryamas, all the way from Franceville, where we started the expedition, until the last site at the Atlantic Ocean at Azuri. We still caught Ryamas. So this is a species that is found all the way from the coast, all the way to the headwaters of the Ogooué. I call it the king of the Ogooué, even though it's only about 5 inches long as an adult. Another king of the Ogooué, or maybe the queen of the Ogooué, would be the Cruz catfish. These catfish are absolutely everywhere. They make it out into the ocean. The fishermen who are working and fishing in the ocean catch Cruz, as do fishermen in Franceville, and they're also prized by every person in Gabon. We had cichlids all the way out to the coast, even when we were tasting brackish water, and we had crassiforms. Again, Brycinus longipinus, another one of the species that was really common throughout the entire Ogooué, from Franceville all the way to the coast. Now, this was our final resting point. This is the Atlantic Ocean at Ozouri in Gabon. And you may not see it in my face, but I am damn happy to have my feet on solid ground. At that point, we had just had a case of malaria. We had 2 cases of trench foot. It had been raining for a week straight, and our progress had slowed to a crawl as we battled the tides and the wind getting out to the Atlantic. We'd battled for about 7 weeks, about 1,000 kilometers or 750 miles. And, we became the first crew in 140 years to descend the Ogooué, and we did it safely. And there were some takeaways for me. And one of the big takeaways was how connected the Ogooué was. We were catching snapper, these huge, probably one of the larger species in the Ogooué, 750 kilometers, 500 miles from the coast. And when I talk to the local fishermen, it sounds like they may make it even further. They may make it all the way up to Mbungubuduma or even Franceville. So these fish may migrate 1,000 kilometers up the Ogooué. Now, when I'm thinking about a wild river like the Ogooué and what we need to do to protect fish diversity in the system, for species that migrates hundreds of kilometers, we need to make sure that dams that are built don't obstruct migratory corridors, or at least integrate fish passages to save species like this snapper. Now, I will say this individual, I killed it, I filleted it, we all ate it as a team, and it was full of eggs. And it was caught in Njole, a long ways from the coast. So while the scientific record says that these fish breed in the ocean, I think we have some anecdotal evidence that some individuals may be breeding in fresh water, and these may function similarly to the salmon in our Pacific West Coast streams. Another takeaway that I took from the Ogooué was it's not all about the fish, it's about the people. So this is my meeting with the chiefs of Mbungubuduma, the Aduma people. So these are the river people of the Ogooué. Their name, the name of their town means the paddle of the Aduma. And so these people care about their river. They know the fish that are in it. They know the values that are derived from it. And when I started to ask them questions about it, what they responded with was, why is there not more protection for our river? Why do we have national parks that protect the lands? Why do we have marine protected areas that protect the seas? Well, we don't have freshwater protected areas. We have rules against hunting, but no rules against fishing. And so I think that looking forward, if we're thinking about protecting a wild ecosystem like the Ogooué, we've got to think about not only working with the Gabonese government and designing law, but we also need to work with the local populations to implement the law, and also to design the law, because these are the folks who rely on the ecosystem every single day. Now, as I mentioned, we paddled for about 7 weeks. We started in Franceville. We paddled all the way down to the Atlantic Ocean. It transitioned from forest to savanna, back to forest, down into the mangroves, and finally to the sandy beaches. We sampled 42 sites, collected almost 10,000 fish, and documented this river like it had never been documented before. And I couldn't have done it without the support of the Ohio Cichlid Association as my 3rd largest donor for this expedition. So I really appreciate your support. I'm so grateful to have the chance to share some of the adventure, let you know about some of the awesome fish that we collected on this expedition, and hopefully provide some value added for your investment in my project and my work in Gabon. I hope that in the future this will result in conservation of the Ogooué and protection. Now, if you're interested, protection of these fish species. If you're interested in looking at more photos or contacting me, I've got all my contact information here. And if you're not using Instagram, we've got everything also uploaded on a website at africaslastwildriver.com. So with that, I'm going to stop my share screen and I'm going to come back to the call with you all and take any questions.
Outstanding, Joe. That was wonderful. I really wish we could have heard you live, but this was good too.
Thank you, Lou.
Yeah, that was amazing. Just I would give anything to be there with you on that trip. That would have been fantastic. So we actually have quite a few questions from people in our chat too, as well.
I have a couple.
Yeah.
I'd like to start with. So you were supposed to go in April, if I remember, and because of COVID, you couldn't. When did you leave again? I can't remember offhand now.
We were on the river on August 20th.
Oh, and how did that affect your success? I'm that rainy season toward the end, you were supposed to miss, weren't you?
We were a little bit lucky in that the rainy season was a little bit late, but what it did was it made our time shorter. So my original intention was we were going to stop at every site, every priority site. So this is all the dam sites, all the proposed dam sites, all the confluences, all the historical sites. We were going to stop for 3 days and sample a lot more effectively than we could in a single day. So we ended up basically going through the expedition, never camping at the same site twice. We'd arrive at a site maybe at 4 p.m. We'd sample for as long as we could, process our fish, and the next morning at sunrise, we'd be moving downstream again. So my ideal scenario, we were going to be out on the river for several months, and it ended up just being several weeks. So that was the big loss in the delay. Now, that said, I think for a baseline, for a first effort going down the Ogooué, I think we pulled it off pretty darn well. And I think surveying 42 sites is a pretty good baseline over the course of 7 weeks.
So what were the biggest things you had to watch out for as far as dangers?
Well, honestly, the hospitals were far away, so any small incident we had to deal with ourselves. So number one priority is malaria. We knew someone was going to get malaria at some point. It ended up happening on the last week of the trip. So that was a concern. We also were very afraid of the rapids. As I mentioned, I was not much of a rafter before this expedition. And there's no Google, you can't Google rapids of the Ogooué and find out what's coming. So, what I had done was I had scoured all the topographic maps I could and looked at Google satellite images, and I dropped all these GPS coordinates and said, maybe there's a rapid here. Maybe there's a rapid here. But until you got there and saw the rapid, you had no idea what was coming. So, you'd get to a spot, the rapid would be really loud, you'd pull off, you'd walk down the river, try to scout it, fly your drone over it, try to figure out some path that would be safe, and then you'd go. And sometimes you'd be halfway down the rapid and realize, oh my God, this is much scarier than I thought it was going to be. And so you were constantly reading the water. There was no pause in terms of, just kind of preparing yourself. Shit hit the fan. If we flipped our raft, we had 1,000 pounds of gear underwater that we relied on. And a lot of our gear, a lot of our crew members didn't swim very well. So the thought of flipping a boat in the rapids with, gear that would sink and team members that would sink was pretty scary. And then also the animals. So, all the crocodiles, the hippos, the elephants, we were setting up our campsites literally on the tracks of hippos and on the tracks of elephants. And so you're saying, oh, I hope that they can smell me. So they're not going to come into my tent at night. But, while we were out on the Ogooué, I had a friend in just in Angola, who was working on another river project, get attacked by a lion in his tent. So wildlife attacks are a real thing in Africa. And so
Yeah.
we were constantly on our toes, especially you're going bathing after you're done sampling. So it's 11 p.m. You're going to climb into the river, scrub yourself. It's pitch black. And you're just thinking about those 7 species of crocodiles.
That's probably the quickest bathing you've ever done.
I didn't smell very good.
Well, I don't
that
think
was
anyone cares, probably. So how did you keep your drone charged?
We carried a generator with us.
Okay.
And about every 10 days, we were able to reach a town that had electricity. So we would find some place, some bar, that had blaring loud music and say, hey, we can throw our drone on charge here and drink a couple beers and eat a nice meal in town. And then the next day we'd hit the road again. So we stopped in all the towns on the Ogooué from Franceville all the way to Azuri. Used those as recharge stations, but we had a generator, a little tiny Honda that we carried with us the whole time.
That's pretty cool. Was there much of a language barrier for you guys?
I speak French pretty fluently, so
okay,
that was totally good. I will say that I expected my Gabonese colleagues to be a little bit more well prepared, but they had never slept in a tent before, not a single one of them, and so it was like, oh God, I've got a lot of teaching to do really fast. So I was really happy to include them and give them, kind of the experience of a lifetime going down this river and seeing their country like they never could have on their own. But I was a little nerve-wracked when I realized kind of how unprepared they were. And so they all showed up without tents. And the first night we had a bad rain, they were like, take me home now. I'm done on the Ogooué.
Oh, my. That's crazy.
Hey,
yeah, go ahead.
Another drone question. You were flying over. Did you say that was an illegal mining camp? Did anybody see that drone? Did it make anybody nervous?
What was interesting was we kind of snuck into the mine under the pretext of just being like idiots. Like, oh, I'm an American. I want to go and tour this mine. I heard it was a thing to do. And then we got kicked out of the mine. And so we were walking our way back out of the mine and we said, hey, I think we can sneak off the trail here a little bit and fly the drone. So we kind of walked out of eye shot and flew the drone as high as we could so that they wouldn't hear it. And we flew back over the mine to take those shots because, they didn't want us there. They didn't want us taking those images. I would have had a lot better shots, a lot closer up. Had they been happy about us being there, but they were very quick to kick us out.
Yeah, I figured they didn't want you. If they're illegal, obviously they're not gonna.
Well, yeah, and you probably have to be a little cautious. You're out in the middle of nowhere. So
yes, I was very keen to say like, hey, I'm here studying fish. Nobody cares about the weird scientist who's studying fish. If I'd come in saying, hey, I'm studying the impacts of dam development, mining, and timber extraction on this wild ecosystem, I think I would have had some enemies, and I think I would have maybe not been so safe going down the Ogooué.
Yeah, no kidding. One other question I see here is, are tilapia considered trash fish or highly prized?
They're definitely prized. So I would say, in terms of like the shieldbait catfishes are number 1 for freshwater fish. Number 2 is going to be the Cruz catfish. Number 3 is going to be all the cichlids. They're loved. It's an interesting thing. So, I love biodiversity. So to me, seeing these Nile tilapia in the Ogooué, knowing that they're hybridizing with local cichlids and that they're displacing other species, I feel pretty bad about it. But you go to a market, those are selling for a lot more than a lot of the native fish. So a lot of the native species end up getting smoked and sold at a pretty cheap rate. So, if you're thinking about livelihoods for fishermen, I think that the tilapia are a great thing. And so, I think that they're really prized in Gabon.
Cool. Are there, now, did you say you collected some of them? Did you actually take some back home to breed, or was they all left there, everything that you collected?
Everything I collected was left there.
Okay.
I think we would have had a little bit of a logistic nightmare transporting them safely down in the raft with us.
Okay,
So
I
we
thought
had
so. I was just making sure.
I had originally hoped that I would be able to get a little bit more financial support on the ground, a little bit more local logistic support, and I could then move live fish in and out of the field and also preserve specimen. But basically, the Gabonese government said, it's COVID, we can't give you a car. And all the local NGOs said, it's COVID, we're not having any operations right now. So other than the US Embassy, I didn't have any surprise support on this expedition. And we were pretty much just us in the raft going downstream with very little on the ground to support us. So no live fish left the Ogooué this trip, but fingers crossed, my fiance and I are in discussions with the Minister of the Environment about taking over a position that would put us right back on the banks of the Ogooué. So Byron, you might have the opportunity to head back to Gabon with me sometime soon.
Hey, I lead a college young adult ministry, and we're always looking for humanitarian work. And so I could easily bring a group over and raise support and join in with you, maybe.
I'd love to talk it over with you. Let me finalize the job offer and sign on the dotted line, and then I'll get back to you. And I Lou, I mentioned it to you as well, but I think that Gabon's an awesome area to explore. The fish diversity there is so great that once you get into the capital city, you don't need to go more than 10 minutes out of town, and you can catch endemic killies, catfishes, more myrids, and cichlids. So it's really an amazing area to go and explore with the dip net.
I was gonna say, yeah, some of those little catfish that you showed in the pictures, I could already tell, like, people watching online were like, where do I get those?
What was amazing, those little microcenodontists, I've never seen them as abundant as those couple sites we surveyed around Franceville. So that species in particular is quite striking. And if you want the GPS coordinates, they're on iNaturalist. You can literally go and find exactly where we collected those species. Now, for anything that is vulnerable, threatened, or endangered, the GPS coordinates are going to be a little bit more vague, but you'll know the region where we collected them.
Cool. That is awesome. Lou, you got any other questions for him?
I think that's it. You covered the ones from the comments that that needed asked. So, yeah, I think we're good. This was great.
All right. Well, I'm going to bring Dawn back in, and so we're wrapping up the questioning time. We got prizes coming up. What's next, Lou?
Well, I think Dawn's going to tell us about another hobbyist we lost.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we did lose a former board member of the OCA, Joe Ring. Joe and Gail Ring were board members back possibly around 10 years ago. I believe they handled the refreshment duties for us. So they live over in Valley City, and apparently there's going to be a memorial service sometime in August for Joe. He was a great guy. Gail's a great person. I guess Joe was president of the Medina Aquarium Society, I'm told by Jeff Natterer. So, I hope I don't have to bring any more news along that line for a long time to come.
Yeah, I didn't know he was a board member, an OCA board member. That was before my time on it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, Joe, if you have places to go, you can bow out gracefully here. You don't have to sit and listen to our business unless you want to put in your name for the prize.
Well, thank you, Lou. I would honestly stay, but my computer is running a little bit low, and I've got to find a campsite tonight.
Yeah, that's what I was
We're going to be, as I mentioned, we're going to be hiking out bright and early tomorrow morning. got a 26-mile or 25-mile from Tuolumne Meadows to Harriet Lakes. So it should be a backbreaker up and over 2 mountain passes.
Wow.
But I'm going to be strong by the end of the summer. And next time we
No
chat,
kidding.
I'll be able to show a lot of really beautiful fish pics from the alpine lakes that we're working in. So we're working with brook trout, rainbow trout, brown trout, and golden bows, which is a hybrid golden and rainbow trout. So should be really beautiful. All the lakes are over 10,000 feet. And maybe next time I get to hang out with the OCA, we'll be talking about some trout as well.
We'll definitely be in touch. And yeah, it's already getting, what is it, 6:45, almost 7 o'clock there, huh? So.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful evening. So I'm going to get out after it. Thank you guys so much. It's really great to see your friendly faces and reconnect. And I hope I can get out there as soon as possible.
Yep, I'll be in touch.
Yep, thanks so much, Joe.
Yeah, I'll be bugging you. You know how I do.
Thanks.
All
right.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, so to the drawings.
Yeah. I can get get that all ready whenever you're ready.
Hey, Lou, I spared you the striped green shirt for the return.
Yeah, my eyes are settling down now.
Yeah, good. Got my old Aqua Mojo shirt.
Nice one.
One of my favorites.
All right.
Okay, so how about that Wheel of Destiny?
Yep, it's ready to roll.
Okay, how many we have on there?
Oh, let me look at the full screen layout. Let's see here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, I think.
How many did we have watching?
I think we hit a peak of about 32.
Okay.
So we're hitting summertime.
I'll tell you what, word's going to get around and people will be watching it on YouTube. That was too good a miss. I mean, that's why I really wanted him to come in August, which was the original plan, but he got a new job that going to make that impossible. So
yeah.
At least we were able to do this. So
yep, it was great just to be able to see everything, and yeah, definitely would be worth connecting with him more.
Okay, so this is the first one. It's open to everybody, and it is they're both open to everybody, but this one, anyone can win the prize. 2 containers of Rapashi food, 6-ounce grub pie, and only a 3-ounce morning wood.
I'm sorry. All right, let's spin that wheel and see who the lucky winner is. Yeah.
Scott Daw. All right. Congratulations.
All right, we'll remove him. And so what's the next prize we have here?
Or if the winner is an OCA member, and most of the people on here, I'm pretty sure, are OCA members. So hopefully we can give this away. It's a 3-pound bucket of omega-1 2-millimeter sinking cichlid pellet, something I use a lot of personally. So this was very, very generous gifts from Dustin at Blue Seas Tropicals. We asked for something and I didn't expect this much. This was nice. Thank you, Dustin, if you're still watching.
All right, well, here we go.
She's a member. Rhonda's a member. Yeah. That's a good win there. Nobody deserves it more than Rhonda. She was on the board for a long time and did a whole lot of work, a lot of behind the scenes work at the Extravaganza. And we're still trying to fill her shoes here. As she retired from the board last year. So I'll be in touch, Rhonda.
All right. Okay, well, that's the end of the prizes, and we just got our final wrap up. Is there anything else we're going to say before we head out?
I think we're good. I think with great presentation. I'm glad at least those of you that were here could be here. I've been telling you it was a good one. Some of you believed me, and now you know.
Hey, I did have one other thing, Lou, Byron.
Yeah.
We're not sure when we're going to roll it out, but we are procuring a full set of Ad Koning's books signed by Odd, and we will offer them in a raffle, more than likely at the live extravaganza. So get your checkbooks out, get ready to buy raffle tickets, and that'll be a prize worth bidding on.
Yeah, a chance to help out the Jim Smith Fund, I assume.
Yep. Yeah, and it's a set of 8 books of his currently active titles.
So I may have to break down and actually enter that raffle because I've avoided it being on the board.
I think you need to be in that one.
So, all right. Well, hey, it's been a great night, and everybody, thanks for tuning in and watching. Share this with your friends, especially if people are really interested in learning about new and different places in which they've never been before. Just incredible journey watching Joe travel through that unique river. And so it's definitely worth sharing with other people. It'll be on our YouTube channel and on Facebook as well. So that's a great way to let people know about what's out there. And hopefully August, I won't be there, but I think I'm going to figure out how to get you guys to make this so that other people can watch it without having to be there. So we'll see if that happens. So, so everybody take care and have a good night.
Yeah, put that on the agenda for Saturday night's board meeting. Next week. Will
do.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right. See you later.
Good night.